How did you go about deciding where to film it? Like location shots, shooting on the CTA?
I highly advised against that.
Yeah, I mean, like it seemed it was probably something that was difficult. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, most of the film was shot in Edgewater, which is where I live.
Okay,
I've been living in Chicago for over 20 years, in various neighborhoods around the north side and the west side.
Okay.
And I love Chicago.
Yeah.
And I just love, independently owned businesses. I like, the taquerias and the coffee, the Greek diners, and so I wanted to kind of show that side of the city, the kind of places that people who live here frequent.
Yes.
And actually, people were really nice to us for most of our locations.
Yeah.
Cookies and Carnitas is a real place around the corner from where he lives.
Right.
And they just said, come in, that sounds great.
The
bookstore.
The bookstore was the only location we actually paid a fee.
But they were really nice about letting us do whatever we wanted. Like, they just pretty much gave us the run of I think the owner almost left and just let us be there the whole time.
The women's health clinic, that's my dentist's office. He gave that up to us for free. Dr. Tomaselli, I should plug him. He does very good work.
That's great. That is awesome. And I think you talked a little bit about it even in how you were writing it, but when I watched this film, I felt like a genuine kindness. That's sort of like the word that I was kind of, it comes across like new love sparked, relationships, and then also relationships coming to an end, but like there's like really a warmth to it, and there's really no bad guys.
Yeah.
There's no really negativity in this film. Is that what you wanted to portray?
100%. It makes me very happy that you say that.
Yeah.
Some people read the script, and even some people looking at the rough cuts, were saying, geez, Claudio and Tess are really unlikable.
Right.
And I never worried about that.
Yeah.
My brother read the script before we shot it. He said, you need to be careful because these characters are just bitching at each other the whole time.
Right.
And I never worried about that because I thought they were, I don't think you should try too hard to make the characters likable.
Yeah.
I like them personally. But I find them interesting. That's the most important thing. Like I care about them.
Right.
And I feel like Claudio and Tess are just as likable as Paul and Julie. We just dropped in on them at a bad time in their lives. And the truth is Paul and Julie could turn into Claudio and Tess, right?
Yeah.
It could be the same thing a few years down the line.
Right.
So but in general, the kind of films I like to watch are the ones where there are no bad guys.
Yeah.
I don't like to feel like I'm rooting against someone.
Yeah.
Because there are no villains in life.
Yeah.
I mean, the idea of who's a villain is totally subjective. Like, I might be the bad guy to somebody.
Yeah.
But,
That's awesome. Yeah, no, I'm totally with you on that. And a little sort of, I talked about it in my review a little bit, the song Lakeshore Drive, and that entire scene really in itself, like just choosing that song and choosing to sort of have these two characters go for a cruise on Lakeshore Drive and to hear that song as a Chicagoan,
right.
It's like totally a nostalgic kind of thing.
Everybody who lives here comments on that. Yeah. And it's funny because we've taken this to some film festivals in other states, and they don't have the same response because they don't know the song and they don't know the road.
Yeah. right.
So, but everybody who lives in Chicago loves to drive down Lakeshore Drive.
Oh yeah.
I was doing an interview with David Valley, who I think is a buddy of
he's a friend of mine.
Yeah, he said, there are no Chicago landmarks in this film, and I said, well, there's Lakeshore Drive.
Yeah,
that's the
And there's one undershot of the L.
Yes, you see the L. You see the L. So those are landmarks. Well, they're not tourist attractions.
Yeah, and that Lakeshore Drive shot, I mean, it looks like you're almost like hanging out the window with your camera. I mean, like, what's the process of even getting that shot? Did you have to just take two cars and put them side by side?
Yeah, that's what we took, two cars. But what the really tricky thing was, and I have to give props to our cinematographer Vince Bolger, were the close-ups of their faces while they were driving. Because what he did, and it was a spontaneous decision.
Yeah.
He said because we drove up and down it over and over to get those shots, and it was a lot of fun because there was no sound, so the actors could just do whatever they wanted.
Yeah.
They were having a ball, and
Yeah.
Vince, he's a small guy, fortunately, and he said, "Chelsea, is it okay if I climb up there and sit in your lap?" This is a small car. And
it wasn't a Fiat, was it?
It was something like that. It was his car.
It was his car, yeah.
It was like a little hatchback or something.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so she said, okay, and fortunately she's small, and he literally climbed in her lap, very dangerous, going down Lakeshore, and was shooting her face to get those shots, and then he panned over and got Adam's face.
Yeah. I mean, don't let people tell you, hey, there's no landmarks. I think like that. I think for a lot of people who live in this city, driving down Lakeshore Drive and hearing that song, is something that conjures up a lot of memories, and that's what it did for me. So I applaud you for that. Now, the movie was dedicated to Harold Ramis. And
another local
Chicagoan, and Elaine Renee. Okay, can you talk like why you dedicated this film to these two people?
Yeah, it was kind of a stupid thing to do because now
I'm sure you get
every time I see it. They sometimes people will say, "Were those your biggest influences on this movie?" And they weren't at all. People will say, I can see how this film was an exact cross between Ramis and Renee.
Okay.
And it really, that's not what we were going for. I mean, they're two directors I love, and they passed away when we were in pre-production.
I was going to say,
within a week of each other.
To me, like more the moment and the timing.
Yeah, it was the timing more than anything. And I should also point out, Harold Ramis's widow, Erica Mann Ramis, came and spoke in one of my classes a few months before he passed away.
Oh, that's awesome.
And if he had been alive, or if he had been well, he would have done it. But she came, and originally I asked her to come and talk about Groundhog Day.
Yeah.
Because I love showing that film in class.
It's one of our favorite. My wife and I actually got married on Groundhog Day.
Oh wow, that's amazing. Oh okay, right. So
Yeah.
So she was going to come talk about it. She didn't work on it, but she was there for the shooting of it.
Yeah.
And then I found out that she produced a film about the Joffrey Ballet, which was part of the PBS American Masters program, and it actually had its premiere here in this theater. And as soon as I found out she produced that, I said, oh, well, forget Groundhog Day, talk about this film you made.
Yeah.
So she came out, and it was a class of maybe 15 people, and I interviewed her in front of the class afterwards, and she could not have been nicer and lovelier. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. And she and I was asking her all about his work as well, and I told her how much I loved his film, The Ice Harvest. Have you seen that?
I have seen that. I love that film.
Very underrated film.
John Cusack,
John Cusack, Billy Bob Thornton, and Oliver Platt. Who makes the film.
He's a bumbling drunken mess.
Yeah, exactly. Have you seen it, Clare?
I have not seen
It's a great black comedy that takes place at Christmas. About a lawyer who decides to rip off the mob.
It's awesome.
It's great.
It's
and
really
nobody knows that film, and so I told her how much I loved it, and she said, do you really? And she said, oh, I'm going to go home and tell him you said that. And it just made me feel good, a few months later to think that she probably told him that, and probably brought him a little bit of comfort.
That's awesome.
So,
and obviously, sort of a lead into that. Can you talk about some of your other film influences in general, other than obviously Harold Ramis? Can you talk about what sort of shooting styles or films that you've seen that you sort of wanted to reference for making a film like this?
Yeah, the biggest influence on this film was just real life. It's not the kind of film where we were really, where I was trying to emulate another film or filmmaker. Especially, during the writing process, I was just sort of thinking about people I've known and, stories I've heard, and, because we wanted it to feel very psychologically and emotionally credible. We wanted to have feel, I'm not the kind of person who likes to make films about films, but having said all that, I mean, of course, you always watch movies as references for the cast and for the crew, because no matter what you're doing, somebody's definitely done something before that was similar.
Yeah.
So for the cast, we actually watched Richard Linklater's Before Sunset.
Okay.
The day we did our table read, because we didn't know the actors that well, and I don't know what kind of films they're used to watching, and I knew they had a lot of great theater experience, and I said, just so you guys will know what I consider to be good naturalistic film acting.
Right.
This is a movie about a man and a woman talking to each other, and this is what our movie is going to be.
Yeah.
You know? So I thought that was a good choice, and just to set the tone.
Yeah.
And then for sort of visual references, I gave a list of films to my cinematographer and my gaffer as well, Alex Halstead, who was very crucial in helping out because he's very good at lighting. So we looked at a lot of European films made in black and white. European art films, kind of the 50s, 60s, and 70s.
8.5.
Not 8.5. I showed A Man Escaped by Bresson to my DP. We watched My Night in Mods by Eric Romer.
Okay.
A film called The Mother and the Whore by Jean Eustache.
Oh, I've never
Great
seen that.
4-hour French drama from the 70s. And again, these are all films that are just basically people talking in rooms that are shot in black and white.
Yeah.
And more recently, Stranger Than Paradise, Jim Jarmusch.
Yes.
And a great micro-budget film called The Color Wheel, Alex Ross Perry.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It came out, I think, in 2001.
Yeah. I'm starting to discover him as a director.
Yeah, he shot that. Yeah, he did Queen of Earth. With
Yes. Yeah, with those blondes.
And that was kind of his breakout film. He shot it for like $40,000, but he shot it on 16 millimeter, so it's a pretty ambitious for a no-budget film.
And sort of to make you two get gooey about each other, can you sort of talk about like what she means to you as a producer and having her there in your corner? I mean,
absolutely. Well, it was a fluke that we hooked up to begin with.
Okay.
She is her boyfriend, her live-in boyfriend of many years, is my wife's brother.
Oh, awesome.
So we met at holiday parties.
Yeah.
While I was
white
still,
elephants.
while I was still in my master's program, and so when I introduced myself, I'm studying producing. He's like, oh, you want to produce a film?
And I hadn't even written it. I said, I want to make a feature. When I'm done with the script, I'll send it to you. And she said, okay. She probably thought I wouldn't, even write it. Because it was probably a year, later by the time I sent it to you.
Yeah.
So fortunately, you guys didn't break up.
No. Though I think when we started this, there was that little bit of like, well, Ben and I better not break up because we'll ruin the movie.
It really would. But in terms of what she means to me, I can't imagine a better producer. I mean, I couldn't have even made the film without her, and I don't even think I realized that at the time.
Right.
But you talk about looking back and sort of recognizing how valuable people were in hindsight. Claire, busted her ass on the film. She, like I said, with a no-budget film, everybody wears 5 hats. She was not only the producer, the casting director, she did the catering. She was on set almost every day.
Yeah.
And so she was the first producer I've ever worked with who really produced.
Yeah.
In the past, I'd made these indie short films, and somebody else was credited as producer, but I was the one who was doing the scheduling.
Yeah.
And so when she came along, she took care of all that bureaucratic stuff, which is what a producer should do. Yeah. And it freed me up to do the creative things.
Yeah.
I firmly believe that a producer's job is to make sure that the artists can just do the art as much as possible.
Yeah.
That's what they're there for. Yeah, that's what you're there for. And and you keep an eye on the big picture and you let them do your thing. And every once in a while you're like, well, can we do this? Is this within your artistic vision? Because it's in my budget. But also, Mike is a wonderful collaborator. He was just a wonderful director to work with, always open to new ideas, and even if you told him something that didn't work with what his vision of the film was, he's very kind about telling you. So it's just like, I understand where you're coming from, but we're gonna go in this direction and this is why. So